What if events went differently in Kung Fu Panda? Welcome back, my fellow watchers of the multiverse. My name is Max Charlevoix, aka MissedThePart, and in today's epic what if scenario movie, we're going to be diving into what if there was another dragon warrior? What if Shrek from far, far away became the dragon warrior in Kung Fu Panda? Now, how would this change Poe's story and Shrek's story as a whole? This is going to be an insane crossover scenario, and I am super excited to finally bring this what if to life. I am super excited that we finally have it here on the channel, and I do want to give a massive shout out to our watchers of the multiverse on Patreon and also the YouTube community members. I can't thank you guys enough. Your support really goes a long way to making this content possible, and it makes me do this content full time, so I can't thank you enough here on the YouTube channel. I also do want to give a massive shout out to those who are subscribed to the YouTube Shorts channel. So this was actually an idea that was brought up on the MissedThePart YouTube Shorts, so do make sure to subscribe to that channel so that you never know. It's interconnected, everything here is interconnected, what we talk about, and I thought this has to be a story on the channel. With that being said, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, grab some popcorn because things are about to get crazy. Deep within the marshlands, far from the grand kingdoms and bustling cities, an ogre lived in peaceful isolation. His home, a modest, mud-soaked swamp, was filled with the sounds of croaking frogs, buzzing insects, and the occasional belch of swamp gas. He was content with his solitude, enjoying the silence that came with a life free from the meddling of others. His name, Shrek. For years he had lived alone, keeping to himself, scaring away any trespassers that dared come near his land. He had no interest in heroes, kingdoms, or grand adventures. If anything, the idea of being involved in anything remotely noble or heroic made him sick to his stomach. But fate had other plans, because across the land something ancient was stirring. And soon, Shrek's life of quiet seclusion would come to an end. The world beyond the swamp was filled with rumors of a great destiny. In the fabled Jade Palace of the Valley of Peace, a prophecy was unfolding, one that would shake the balance of the world. Master Shifu, the legendary Kung Fu master, stood before the sacred dragon scroll, his expression one of unease. The scroll was meant to reveal the dragon warrior, the one who would bring peace and justice to the land. The furious five tigress, monkey, mantis, viper, and crane stood in formation, ready to witness the selection of the greatest warrior of their time. Shifu, calm but focused, turned toward the gathered monks and spoke. Today the dragon warrior will be revealed, the one chosen by destiny. As the palace bells tolled, the great turtle Master Oogway slowly made his way to the center of the palace courtyard, his wise eyes scanning the gathered warriors. He raised his hand, and a hush fell over the temple. The air was thick with anticipation. This was the moment that would determine the fate of the world. But far away, deep within the swamp, another story was unfolding. Shrek was in the middle of his usual daily routine, bathing in mud, scaring away intruders, and enjoying a well-earned swamp rat stew, when something unexpected happened. A royal messenger arrived at his swamp, looking absolutely terrified. Dressed in regal robes, the messenger stood at the edge of the swamp, shaking as he unrolled a scroll. By order of the kingdom of far, far away and the Jade Palace, you are hereby summoned to the grand selection ceremony for the dragon warrior. Shrek blinked, then he blinked again. Then, after a long silence, he burst into laughter. "Ha! You got the wrong guy, mate," Shrek bellowed, wiping a tear from his eye. I ain't no warrior, and I sure as heck ain't going to no fancy palace with a bunch of kung fu monks. The messenger gulped. But the prophecy, schmophecy, Shrek interrupted, crossing his arms. I don't do prophecies, I do mud baths, now get lost. But before the messenger could argue, a blinding golden light flashed across the sky. The ground trembled, the very air hummed with ancient energy. And then, in an instant, Master Oogway appeared. The wise tortoise stood calmly on the surface of Shrek's swamp, as if the murky water were as solid as stone. His eyes gleamed with wisdom, and his expression was serene. Shrek, stunned, took a cautious step back. You're a long way from home, Gramps. Oogway smiled. Home is where destiny leads us. Shrek frowned. Well, destiny can take a hike. I ain't interested. Oogway chuckled, his shell gleaming in the dim sunlight. Ah, but destiny is very interested in you, young ogre. He slowly lifted his staff and pointed toward Shrek's chest. You are the one, Oogway said softly. Shrek's stomach dropped. The what? The dragon warrior. The words hung in the air. Shrek felt his whole body stiffen. Surely this had to be a mistake. Him? A warrior? He barely fit in with regular people, let alone some kind of legendary order of kung fu fighters. But Oogway was unmoved. You may not see it now, but the universe has brought you here for a reason. Shrek gritted his teeth. Oh, I see the reason, he grumbled. It's 'cause fate's got a twisted sense of humor. Despite his protests, Shrek had no choice but to leave his swamp. Escorted by a group of royal guards, he found himself dragged toward the fabled Jade Palace, home to the greatest kung fu warriors in the world. The journey was long and miserable. The food was too clean. The people were too polite. The road was bumpy, and he couldn't stop thinking about how he'd rather be knee-deep in swamp water. And to make things worse, there was a loud, obnoxious talking donkey riding alongside him. Wow, can you believe this, Shrek? We're gonna be heroes. Well, you are, but you can bring me along, right? I mean, who else is gonna be your sidekick? Shrek groaned. I don't need a sidekick, I need out of this mess. But there was no turning back. As the Great Jade Palace loomed on the horizon, Shrek felt a strange sense of unease creep into his gut. He had faced angry villagers, fire-breathing dragons, and magical fairy tale creatures. But somehow, this was worse, and he had no idea what awaited him inside. Shrek's first impression of the Jade Palace. It was way too clean. The towering golden gates, the pristine courtyards, the flowing silk banners, and the way the monks walked gracefully and silently. It all made him feel like he had stepped into a painting, and he hated it. This place could really use some mud, Shrek muttered, as he stomped up the grand steps, his heavy footfalls echoing across the polished stone. Behind him, Donkey was bouncing with excitement. Shrek, look at this place. This is top-tier 5-star palace living. And you're gonna be living here, training with the Furious Five, eating that fancy palace food. Shrek groaned. The only thing I want to train for is how to get out of here. As he reached the entrance, the massive wooden doors creaked open, revealing the figures waiting inside. At the center of the courtyard stood the Furious Five. Shrek had heard of them in passing. Legendary warriors, masters of kung fu. Tigress, the disciplined and powerful leader. Monkey, the unpredictable trickster. Crane, the graceful strategist. Viper, the swift and precise fighter. Mantis, the tiny but ferocious combatant. They looked exactly as impressive as the legends described, and right now, they were all staring at him. Tigress's expression was stone cold. This is a joke. Shrek scratched his head. That's what I said. Master Shifu, The red panda master of Kung Fu strode forward, his eyes narrowing. "There must be some mistake," Shifu said, addressing Oogway, who had just arrived behind Shrek. "This ogre is not the dragon warrior." "Finally, some common sense," Shrek said, clapping his hands. "See? Even the fluffy raccoon guy agrees." Shifu's eye twitched. "I am not a raccoon." Shrek smirked. "All right, fine. Red rat." Monkey snorted, but Tigress silenced him with a glare. Master Oogway, completely unbothered by the tension, merely smiled. "There are no mistakes, only paths we do not yet understand." Shifu crossed his arms. "Master Oogway, with all due respect, he is not fit to be a warrior. He is lazy, undisciplined, and..." Shrek yawned. "I'm still here, you know." Tigress took a step forward, eyes sharp as daggers. "The dragon warrior must be a master of Kung Fu. He must be swift, precise, and disciplined. This ogre is none of those things." Shrek raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I get it. You're upset because you thought you were gonna get picked, huh?" Tigress's fist tightened. Crane leaned toward Mantis. "He's gonna die." Shifu sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "If Master Oogway insists, then we will train him." Shrek's stomach dropped. Wait, train me?" He gestured toward the Furious Five. "With them? In what? Manners?" Shifu gave him a small devilish smirk. "No, in pain." Shrek quickly realized that being the dragon warrior wasn't all it was cracked up to be. For the next several days, he was put through the worst training imaginable. Day 1. He was forced to carry barrels of water up the Jade Palace stairs. Halfway through, he drank half the supply because he was sweating too much. Day 2. He had to learn balance. He failed, miserably. Donkey, however, found his face planting into a pond. Hilarious. Day 3. He sparred with Tigress. It lasted 3 seconds. Day 4. He was given his first serious lesson in Kung Fu. He called the horse stance the most uncomfortable squat in history. Day 5. He was tasked with breaking a wooden board. Instead, he broke the entire training post. Day 6. He got hungry and ate the sacred training dumplings. This resulted in Shifu throwing a broom at his head. By the end of the week, Shifu was fuming. The Furious Five were losing patience, and Shrek was more than ready to leave. But something unexpected happened. Late at night, after another disastrous training session, Shrek sat alone in the palace courtyard. For the first time in his life, he felt small. He had always been strong, physically, but here, he was outmatched. He had spent his whole life surviving, but these warriors lived for something greater. And, for the first time, he wondered if he wanted that too. Master Oogway approached him, his eyes calm. "You are troubled." Shrek sighed. "Troubled? No, I'm just tired. I mean, let's face it, Gramps, I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere, I just want to go home." Oogway smiled. "Home is not a place, young ogre. It is what you carry with you." Shrek looked away. "Yeah, well, what if I don't want to carry nothing?" Oogway chuckled. "Then you will carry everything." Shrek frowned. "That's annoyingly deep." Oogway turned toward the sacred peach tree of heavenly wisdom. "One day, a seed will grow into a mighty tree," Oogway said. "It may take time, it may face storms, but in the end, it will stand strong." Shrek stared at the tree. For the first time, he didn't have a snarky comeback. Oogway placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You are stronger than you believe, Shrek. One day, you will see." And with that, Oogway walked away, leaving Shrek alone with his thoughts. Meanwhile, far away from the Jade Palace, another storm was brewing. Deep within the mountain prison of Chorgum, The legendary Kung Fu warrior turned criminal, Tai Lung, sat in chains. But something was different. As he meditated in the dark, he felt it. A shift. Fate had been altered. And now, he knew his time had come. With a chilling grin, Tai Lung's eyes snapped open. The true battle was about to begin. The air was thick with tension. The Jade Palace, once a sanctuary of peace, now stood on the brink of destruction. Word had spread like wildfire. Tai Lung had escaped. The guards of Chorgum prison had failed to contain him, and now the unstoppable warrior was on his way to claim the Dragon Scroll. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was grim. The Furious Five stood ready for battle, their eyes filled with determination. Master Shifu's expression was unreadable. He had known this day would come. He had trained for it, feared it. And then there was Shrek. The reluctant ogre, the supposed dragon warrior, stood at the edge of the courtyard watching the others prepare. A part of him still wanted to run. But another part, the part that had been buried beneath years of solitude and stubbornness, wanted to fight. Shrek clenched his fists, taking a slow breath. He was no kung fu master, but he wasn't weak. Maybe he wasn't meant to be some destined hero. But if this furball thought he could waltz into his new home and take everything away, he had another thing coming. The village below erupted into chaos. Tai Lung arrived like a force of nature. His fur rippled in the wind, his piercing eyes scanning the landscape as he made his way toward the palace steps. The villagers ran in terror, their homes shaking as he stomped through the valley. Then, from the rooftops above, the Furious Five struck first. Tigress led the charge, diving toward Tai Lung with a fierce battle cry. Her claws slashed through the air, her attacks fast and precise. Tai Lung blocked every strike with ease. With a single, devastating counter, he sent her flying into a nearby cart, shattering it into splinters. The others attacked in unison. Monkey swung from a building, using his staff to knock Tai Lung off balance, only to be grabbed mid-air and slammed into the ground. Viper coiled around his arms, attempting to choke him out, only to be ripped off and flung through a market stall. Mantis struck his pressure points, targeting his joints. Tai Lung barely flinched before backhanding him across the village. Crane attempted to lift him into the sky. Tai Lung broke free, sending him crashing down with a brutal kick. Within minutes, the Furious Five lay defeated, groaning in pain. Tai Lung rolled his shoulders, unimpressed. "This is the best the Jade Palace has to offer," he scoffed. Then his eyes turned upward, toward the Dragon Warrior's temple. With a slow, menacing grin, he began climbing the steps. Master Shifu stood at the top of the stairs, waiting. Shrek stood beside him, arms crossed, his face unreadable. Tai Lung paused at the final step, smirking. "Where is he?" Tai Lung asked. Shifu furrowed his brows. "Who?" "The Dragon Warrior," Tai Lung said, stretching his claws. "You wouldn't be stalling, would you?" Shrek cracked his neck. "Yeah, about that," he muttered. "I'm guessing you were expecting someone a little different." Tai Lung's smirk faltered. Then he laughed. "You?" He shook his head in amusement. "This is the joke Oogway left in charge." Shrek sighed. "You know, I'm getting real tired of people saying that." Then, without warning, he punched Tai Lung straight in the face. Hard. Tai Lung stumbled back. For the first time, his eyes widened in shock. Shrek shook his fist, wincing. "Okay, ouch. Forgot you had a rock-hard skull." Tai Lung slowly touched his jaw. His amusement vanished, and then he attacked. Tai Lung lunged forward with incredible speed, his claws aimed directly at Shrek's throat. But this time, Shrek was ready. He dodged to the side, then swung his massive arm forward, clotheslining Tai Lung and sending him tumbling down the stairs. Tai Lung landed on his feet, skidding to a halt, his teeth bared. Shrek rolled his shoulders. "All right, Fuzzy, you want to go? Let's go." The fight exploded into action. Tai Lung was fast, but Shrek was durable. Every attack Tai Lung landed only made Shrek angrier. Shrek used his size and brute strength, tackling Tai Lung through stone pillars, throwing him like a rag doll. Tai Lung countered with agility, landing brutal strikes, but Shrek had something else. Years of fighting off angry mobs, dragons, and magical creatures. At one point, Tai Lung tried to use the nerve strike technique. He jabbed at Shrek's pressure points. Nothing happened. Shrek raised an eyebrow. Were you trying to tickle me?" Tai Lung blinked. "That should have paralyzed you." Shrek shrugged. "Yeah, well, you ever try poking a boulder? 'Cause that's what this is, pal." Tai Lung roared in frustration, charging at full speed, only for Shrek to sidestep and trip him, sending him crashing into the palace doors. Tai Lung groaned, pushing himself up. Then, he saw it. The Dragon Scroll. It was unguarded. With a burst of energy, Tai Lung launched himself forward, grabbing the scroll before anyone could react. The moment his claws touched it, he unraveled it. His eyes scanned the ancient parchment, his heart pounding, and then his face fell. The scroll was blank. There was nothing. "No," Tai Lung whispered. "No, no, no." His voice became a furious roar. Shifu stepped forward. "The power of the Dragon Warrior," Shifu said softly, "was never in the scroll." Tai Lung's breath shook. "Then what is it?" Shrek, wiping some dust off his shoulders, smirked. "Buddy," he said, grinning wide, "it's just me." Tai Lung snarled in rage. "No!" He lunged one last time, and Shrek punched him, hard. The force sent Tai Lung flying back, crashing into the courtyard, with an earth-shaking impact. And just like that, the battle was over. Silence. The palace stood still. The Furious Five, battered and beaten, slowly approached. Shrek, still catching his breath, looked down at his hands. He had won. For the first time, he realized what Oogway had meant. He wasn't some prophecy. He wasn't some chosen warrior, but he was himself, and that was enough. Shifu stepped forward. For the first time, he bowed. Dragon Warrior. Shrek's eyes widened, and then he smirked. Guess that's got a nice ring to it. Deep within the ruins of a hidden temple, a shadowed figure watched through a magical mirror. The fairy godmother smiled coldly. "So, the ogre survived," she mused. Prince Charming, standing beside her, clenched his fists. "Then it's time we changed that." She turned toward the shadows where another figure lurked. Golden feathers gleamed in the candlelight. Lord Shen stepped forward. "Let's begin. Calm before the storm, a new era for the Jade Palace." For the first time in what felt like forever, the Valley of Peace was truly at peace. The battle with Tai Lung had shaken the land, but the people rejoiced. The Dragon Warrior had won. And against all odds, that Dragon Warrior was Shrek. He still wasn't sure how to feel about it. Sure, the title came with some perks. The villagers suddenly didn't scream in terror whenever they saw him. The Jade Palace had a whole section of the kitchen just for him. And training with the Furious Five was actually starting to grow on him. But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. Because something still felt off. There was an unease in the air, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. And Shrek? He had a bad feeling about what was coming next. The kingdom of far, far away had never fallen. Not through wars, not through villainous takeovers, not even when Prince Charming made his foolish attempt at the throne. But all it took was one night to change everything. The sky burned crimson as black smoke rose over the kingdom. Flames spread across the streets, consuming houses, markets, and royal halls alike. At the heart of it all, a shadow moved through the chaos, surrounded by his fleet of iron-wrought warships. A peacock with blood-red eyes, his feathers laced with silver. Lord Shen had returned. Inside the royal palace, Queen Lillian and Princess Fiona stood together surrounded by chaos. The royal guards had been overwhelmed, and the army was crumbling against Shen's forces. "Mother, you have to leave," Fiona urged, gripping her sword tightly. Lillian, though regal as ever, showed no fear. "I'm not abandoning my people," she said firmly. A loud boom shook the castle. The walls cracked, the floors trembled, and from the throne room doors, a wave of armed wolves rushed in. Leading them was the deadliest of them all, Shen's right-hand wolf warrior. "Princess Fiona," the wolf sneered, "your kingdom belongs to Lord Shen now." Fiona gritted her teeth. She wasn't going down without a fight. With an angry battle cry, she charged. The battle for Far, Far Away had begun. Back at the Jade Palace, Shrek was enjoying a rare moment of peace. He was sitting in the courtyard chewing on a bamboo shoot, because why not, when a wounded messenger arrived. The entire palace turned silent as the injured warrior collapsed at the steps. Shrek, Master Shifu, and the Furious Five rushed to his side. With labored breaths, the messenger gasped out a single name. "Shen." Shifu's expression darkened. Shrek frowned. Shen who?" The messenger's hand trembled as he handed over a scroll. Shrek unrolled it. His eyes widened. Inside, written in elegant but menacing strokes, was a message. "The kingdom of Far, Far Away now belongs to me. If you value your home, your people, and your family, come and face me, dragon warrior. I will be waiting." Lord Shen. Shrek's breath hitched. His swamp, his friends, Fiona. His home was under attack, and for the first time since arriving at the Jade Palace, he felt real fear. Shifu stood in silence, reading the scroll. When he looked up, his face was grave. "We must prepare," he said. "Shen is a formidable enemy. He is cunning, ruthless, and without mercy." Shrek gritted his teeth. "Then let's go kick his fancy feathered butt." Tigress stepped forward, arms crossed. "This isn't like Tai Lung. Shen commands an army. If we go to war." Shrek met her gaze, unshaken. "Then we go to war." Shifu nodded slowly. "If we are to stop Shen, we must move now." The Furious Five tightened their weapons. The battle for Far, Far Away was about to begin. In the ruins of the royal throne room, Shen stood at the top of the shattered steps, looking out over his conquered city. Behind him, dark figures emerged from the shadows. Fairy Godmother, Prince Charming, the remaining fairy tale villains, they had all come to pledge allegiance. Charming knelt before Shen, his face filled with rage. "I want the ogre dead." Shen smirked. "Then let's make sure he never leaves the city alive." The Jade Palace had never prepared for a war like this. Shifu and the Furious Five had fought bandits, criminals, and even escaped convicts. But this was different. Shen was not a warrior seeking glory. He was a conqueror. His armies were vast, his weapons powerful, and his mind sharp. If they were going to save Far, Far Away, they had to strike fast and strike hard. Inside the palace courtyard, the warriors of the Valley of Peace were gathered, ready for battle. Shrek stood at the front, gripping his fists. "All right, listen up," he called out, his voice booming. "I ain't exactly the best at speeches, so I'll keep this short. These guys took my home. They took my swamp. And worst of all," he paused, his expression darkening, "they took Fiona." A heavy silence fell over the army. Shrek exhaled, eyes burning with fury. "So here's the plan. We march, we fight, and we take it all back." The warriors roared in agreement. The Jade Palace army was ready, and at dawn they began their march toward Far, Far Away. Meanwhile, Far, Far Away had changed. The once vibrant, lively kingdom had been turned into a fortress. Shen's ironclad warships lined the coast. His wolf soldiers patrolled the streets, and the once proud castle was now draped in his banners. Inside the royal dungeons, Fiona sat chained, her expression unreadable. She had fought. She had fought harder than ever before, but in the end, even she couldn't stand against an entire army. From the shadows, Prince Charming stepped forward. "You should have just surrendered, my dear," he sneered, smirking. Fiona rolled her eyes. "I'd rather kiss an ogre than listen to you." Charming's smirk twitched. "Enjoy your last moments here, princess," he muttered. "Because once Shrek arrives, he dies." Fiona's fist clenched. She knew Shrek was coming. She just had to hold on long enough. At sunrise, the army of the Jade Palace arrived. From the hills overlooking the city, Shrek and his warriors saw what had become of Far, Far Away. The city was covered in smoke, the once golden castle now a dark, ominous fortress. Shrek's stomach twisted with rage. Tigress stepped beside him, gripping her staff. "We do this fast and we do this clean, no hesitation." Shrek nodded. "Then let's get messy." With a roar, the army charged. The battle for Far, Far Away had begun. The fighting exploded across the city. Tigress took on entire squads of wolves, moving like a shadow through the battlefield. Monkey leaped from rooftops, using his staff to knock out enemy archers. Mantis and Viper worked together, taking out key supply lines and disrupting the enemy's organization. Crane led aerial attacks, dropping boulders onto Shen's war machines. And in the middle of it all, Shrek tore through the enemy like a wrecking ball. He didn't fight like a trained warrior, he fought like an ogre. He ripped apart siege weapons with his bare hands. He grabbed enemies and used them as weapons against their own men. He even belly flopped onto an entire squad of wolves, flattening them. But even as they gained ground, Shen's trump card had yet to be revealed. Shrek stormed through the castle doors, leaving a trail of wreckage behind him. He reached the throne room, panting, fists clenched. And there, waiting for him, was Lord Shen. The peacock stood calmly, his red eyes glowing in the dim light. "Ah," Shen said smoothly. "The famous dragon warrior." Shrek cracked his knuckles. "Nice place you got here. Real shame it belongs to someone else." Shen smirked. "Correction. It belongs to me now." The tension in the room grew thick. Then, in a blur, Shen attacked. The battle was fast and brutal. Shrek had fought warriors, monsters, and dragons. But Shen was different. He was fast, precise, deadly. His razor-sharp blades slashed through the air, forcing Shrek to go on the defensive. Shrek swung wildly, but Shen dodged every strike. "You're strong," Shen admitted, his voice smooth, "but strength means nothing without control." He leapt backward, gracefully landing atop a high pillar. "That's what makes me superior," Shen continued. "You fight with anger, but I fight with precision, and precision wins wars." Shrek gritted his teeth. Then he smirked. "You know what's funny?" Shrek said. "I don't fight with precision." And before Shen could react, Shrek picked up an entire stone pillar and threw it. Shen's eyes widened. The pillar slammed into him midair, sending him crashing to the ground. Shrek stomped forward, looming over the fallen warlord. "Sometimes," Shrek growled, "you just need to hit something really hard." Shen gasped, struggling to rise, but before Shrek could land the final blow, a dagger flew through the air, slicing Shrek's arm. Shrek hissed in pain, turning toward the source. From the shadows, Fairy Godmother and Prince Charming emerged, and standing behind them, a cage holding Fiona. Charming smirked. Well, looks like we got here just in time." Shrek's heart pounded. The battle wasn't over yet. Shrek had barely caught his breath from defeating Lord Shen, yet here he was, wounded, exhausted, and now face to face with two of his greatest enemies. Fairy Godmother and Prince Charming stood at the throne room entrance, smirking like vultures. Behind them, Fiona was trapped in a cage, her wrists bound in enchanted chains. "You just don't know when to quit, do you, Ogre?" Fairy Godmother sneered, her wand glowing with sinister energy. Shrek's blood boiled. "You got a lot of nerve showing your face here," he growled, rolling his shoulders. Charming stepped forward, his sword glinting in the dim light. "This is where it ends, Shrek. You may have defeated Shen, but we are far from finished." Shrek smirked, cracking his knuckles. "Good," he muttered. "Neither am I." And just like that, the final battle began. Prince Charming lunged first, his sword cutting through the air. Shrek dodged to the side, barely avoiding the strike. Charming was faster than expected. Every swing of his sword was precise, sharp, and deadly. But Shrek fought differently. Charming fought like a knight, Shrek fought like an ogre. Charming struck with elegance, Shrek blocked with brute force. Charming rolled and dodged gracefully. Shrek kicked him through a pillar. Charming tried to land a finishing blow. Shrek caught the sword with his bare hands and snapped it in half. Charming staggered backward, panting. Shrek wiped the blood from his lip, grinning. "You done yet, pretty boy?" Charming's face twisted with rage. "You think this is over?" he spat, reaching into his coat. "I came prepared." He pulled out a small vial filled with glowing purple liquid. Shrek's stomach dropped. A Fairy Godmother potion. Charming downed it in one gulp. His body shuddered, his muscles expanding, his veins glowing with unnatural power. When he looked back up, his eyes burned with magic. He charged at Shrek faster and stronger than before. And for the first time, Shrek realized he might be in trouble. The chaos unfolds. The Furious Five arrive. Outside, the battle for Far, Far Away raged on. The Jade Palace warriors fought tooth and nail against Shen's remaining forces. At the front of the army, Tigress led the charge, her eyes burning with determination. She had one mission: find Shrek and end this war. Storming through the castle hall, she and the Furious Five smashed through enemy after enemy until they finally reached the throne room. What they saw made them freeze. Shrek was struggling against a magically enhanced Prince Charming, and above them, Fairy Godmother hovered in the air, her wand crackling with power. "This isn't just a war," Monkey muttered. "This is a nightmare." Tigress gritted her teeth. "Then let's wake them up." Shrek had finally managed to knock Charming unconscious, leaving only one opponent left: Fairy Godmother. She floated above him, her wand glowing dangerously. "You've ruined everything," she hissed. Shrek rolled his shoulders, panting. "Yeah, that's kinda my thing." Fairy Godmother snarled, and then she unleashed her full power. The room exploded with magic, lightning crackling from the ceiling. The battle between Ogre and Sorceress began. Fairy Godmother fired powerful magic blasts. Shrek dodged and countered with brute strength. She conjured energy shields. Shrek smashed through them like glass. She tried to teleport behind him. He threw a statue at her mid-teleport. But despite his strength, her magic was overwhelming. With a flick of her wand, she froze him in place. "You're nothing but a mindless brute," she cackled. "You can't stop me." But then, a voice rang out. "Maybe he can't." Fairy Godmother turned sharply. Standing in the doorway was Fiona. Somehow Fiona had freed herself. Now she stood ready, a sword in her hands, her face set in determination. Fairy Godmother narrowed her eyes. "You think you can stop me, girl?" she sneered. Fiona smirked. "Not think, no." With blinding speed, she charged. She dodged Fairy Godmother's magic blasts, flipping through the air. She leapt onto the throne, using it as a launching point, and slammed her sword into Fairy Godmother's wand. The wand cracked. Fairy Godmother's eyes widened in horror. "No!" she shrieked. But it was too late. The wand shattered in her hands. Fairy Godmother staggered backward, her body glowing uncontrollably. The magic inside her was unstable. You fools!" she screamed. "If I go down, I'm taking all of you with me." Her body erupted in golden light, shaking the entire castle. Shrek barely had time to react before a massive explosion consumed the throne room. When the smoke finally cleared, the battle was over. Fairy Godmother was gone. Nothing left but dust. Prince Charming lay unconscious, defeated, and most importantly, far, far away, was free. The remaining enemies surrendered. The people emerged from hiding, cheering. Shrek, bruised and battered, stood in the rubble, taking in the sight of the freed kingdom. Fiona walked up beside him, placing a hand on his arm. "You did it," she said softly. Shrek chuckled, wincing. "We did it, lass." Fiona smiled, and in that moment Shrek knew. He wasn't just an ogre anymore. He was a warrior, a protector, a legend. He was the dragon warrior deep in the ruins of a forgotten castle. A single candle flickered. A figure moved through the shadows, watching through a magical portal. It was Rumpelstiltskin, and in the glowing portal he saw Shrek celebrating with his friends. Rumpelstiltskin smiled darkly. "So, the ogre thinks he's a hero," he whispered. His eyes gleamed with mischief. "Let's see how much of a hero he is when I take everything away." Part 2. The kingdom of Far, Far Away had barely begun to heal. After the brutal war against Lord Shen and the Fairy Godmother, the people were finally free to rebuild. The streets, once filled with fear and fire, were now alive with laughter, music, and hope. Shrek stood at the castle balcony, looking out over the city. It still felt strange. For so long he had fought to protect his home, and now it was actually safe. Fiona stepped beside him, wrapping her arms around his. "It's finally over," she said softly. Shrek exhaled, shaking his head. "I don't know. I got this weird feeling in my gut." Fiona raised an eyebrow. "You always have a weird feeling in your gut." Shrek snorted. "Yeah, well, this one ain't from something I ate." Despite the peace, despite everything, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, and soon, he'd learn that his instincts were correct. Because Rumpelstiltskin was about to rewrite history, deep within the ruins of an abandoned sorcerer's tower, a small, sinister figure paced back and forth. Rumpelstiltskin, the conniving, power-hungry trickster, had watched everything from the shadows. He had seen Shrek rise from a swamp-dwelling ogre to a legendary warrior. And he hated it. He hated that Shrek had won. He hated that Shrek had everything, and most of all, he hated that Shrek had the life that should have been his. As he stared into his enchanted mirror, he sneered. "You think you're a legend now, ogre?" Rumple muttered, his fingers tracing ancient runes carved into the stone floor. "You think you were meant for greatness? His eyes gleamed with dark magic. Let's see how great you are, when you never existed at all. With a wicked grin, he raised a golden quill, dipped in the ink of fate itself. Then, he wrote, and reality began to crack. Far away in the castle of far, far away, Shrek felt it before he saw it. The air suddenly grew cold, his vision blurred, the world around him shaking violently. Something was wrong. He turned to Fiona, but she was already fading away, her form dissolving like mist. Fiona? Shrek lunged forward, but his hands passed through her. She looked at him, confused, then terrified. Shrek, what's happening to me? Then she was gone. The castle vanished. The kingdom crumbled into dust. Shrek fell to his knees as everything he had ever known ceased to exist. And then, darkness. When Shrek opened his eyes, he wasn't in far, far away. He wasn't even in his swamp. He was in the middle of a wasteland. The sky was blood red, the trees twisted and lifeless. The once thriving kingdom of far, far away was now a ruined, abandoned graveyard. Shrek's breathing quickened. What the hell? Then a voice, mocking, taunting. Oh, what's the matter, Shrieky? You don't recognize your own world? Shrek spun around, and there, sitting on a golden throne made of shattered glass, was Rumpelstiltskin, smirking, triumphant. Welcome to your new home, Rumple said, grinning. Shrek's blood ran cold, because he wasn't just in a new world. He was in a world where he had never existed. Rumpelstiltskin had rewritten history. Shrek had never been born. Fiona had never been rescued from the tower. The war against Shen and Fairy Godmother had never happened. Instead, Rumpelstiltskin ruled far, far away with an iron fist. The fairy tale creatures were enslaved. Fiona had never met Shrek and had become a warrior leading a rebellion. Shrek's hands shook. His entire life was gone, and no one remembered him. Determined to fix this nightmare, Shrek snuck through the ruins of what was once his home. He eventually stumbled across a hidden rebellion camp, led by someone unexpected, Fiona. But this wasn't the Fiona he knew. This Fiona was hardened, battle-scarred, and cold. She didn't recognize Shrek at all. Who are you? She demanded, pointing a sword at his throat. Shrek's heart sank. Fiona, it's me. She didn't lower her sword. You're just another fairy tale creature, she snapped. And in case you haven't noticed, we don't have time for fairy tales anymore. Shrek felt like his heart had been ripped out, but he wasn't giving up, because if Fiona didn't remember him, he'd make her remember. And he was going to fix this world, no matter what it took. Shrek eventually learned the truth. Rumpelstiltskin had used an ancient spell to rewrite history. The only way to undo it? Find the artifact that Rumple had used to alter time, and destroy it. But there was a problem. The artifact, the Scroll of Fate, was locked away in Rumple's vault, a vault hidden deep within the most dangerous place in the kingdom, the Burning Mountain, a place guarded by monsters, magic, and an unstoppable army. And there was only one way in, a suicide mission. But Shrek wasn't alone, because despite everything, Fiona agreed to help him. She didn't remember their love. She didn't know who he really was, but something inside her told her to trust him. And so the journey to reclaim time itself began. Meanwhile, in a distant land deep within the Jade Palace, Master Shifu sat in meditation. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. Something was wrong. Across the hall, Tigress and the Furious Five sensed it too. Reality itself had been altered, and if they didn't act soon, Shrek's world and their own would be lost forever. Shrek had seen far, far away in ruins before, but not like this. Not like a land where hope had been crushed beneath the weight of a mad king's rule. The streets were filled with desperate peasants, scavenging for scraps. The once grand marketplace stood empty, burned, and lifeless, and looming over it all was Rumpelstiltskin's palace, his throne carved from shattered history itself. Shrek and the resistance moved through the shadows, avoiding the ever-present patrols of Rumple's guards. This wasn't the world he knew. This was a world where he had never existed, and it was up to him to bring it all back. Fiona's rebel base was hidden deep beneath the city, a vast network of tunnels, built from old sewer lines and abandoned catacombs. It was filled with warriors, exiled fairy tale creatures, and remnants of a once proud kingdom. And none of them trusted Shrek. "This ogre just shows up out of nowhere," Big Bad Wolf growled, arms crossed. "And we're just supposed to believe he knows how to stop Rumple." Gingy, now sporting a battle-worn look with a missing gumdrop button, narrowed his eyes. "Sounds like a load of muffin crumbs to me." Shrek rolled his eyes. "Look, I know how this sounds, but I swear, I ain't making this up. I used to be the dragon warrior. I fought Fairy Godmother, Lord Shen, even Tai Lung." The resistance murmured amongst themselves. Fiona, however, remained cold, her arms crossed. "That's quite a story," she said, her voice flat. "But we don't deal in stories here, Ogre. We deal in survival." Shrek sighed. He knew words wouldn't be enough. He had to prove himself. That night, Fiona gave Shrek one chance to prove his worth. A group of prisoners was scheduled to be executed at dawn, including Puss in Boots and Donkey. If Shrek wanted the Resistance's trust, he had to rescue them before it was too late. "Fine," Shrek grumbled, "but when I pull this off, I want all of you to listen." Fiona gave him a hard stare. "Prove yourself first," she said simply. And so, the mission began. The royal dungeon had once been a place of law and order. Now, it was a nightmare. The halls were lined with cells filled with starving prisoners. Guards in dark armor patrolled the corridors, whips and chains in hand. And at the very back of the dungeon, Puss in Boots and Donkey were locked in a cage. Puss, his once glorious fur now ragged, leaned against the bars, sighing dramatically. "This is a disgrace. I should be wooing noblewomen, not waiting for execution." Donkey groaned. "Man, I don't even know how I got here. One minute I was sleeping, the next, bam, evil dictatorship." Shrek grinned from the shadows. "Miss me?" Puss and Donkey's heads snapped toward him. "Shrek?" they yelled in unison. "Shh," Shrek hissed. "You want the whole castle to hear." Puss blinked in confusion. "How are you here? We thought you were—" "Long story," Shrek muttered, breaking the lock with his bare hands. The guards heard the noise. An alarm blared through the halls. Shrek cracked his knuckles. "All right," he muttered. "Let's have some fun." The guards rushed in, weapons drawn. Shrek met them head on. One guard swung a massive axe. Shrek caught it midair and broke it over his knee. Another tried to stab him. Shrek grabbed him by the helmet and threw him into a wall. A squad charged him. Shrek belly flopped onto them, knocking them all unconscious. Puss and Donkey watched in awe. "Okay, this is new," Donkey muttered. Puss grinned, unsheathing his sword. "Shrek, my friend, I am ready for battle." With the alarm blaring and more enemies approaching, the three made their escape, fighting their way through wave after wave of guards. By the time they reached the surface, the rebellion was waiting. Fiona stood at the front, eyes scanning the battlefield. When she saw Shrek, alive, victorious, and dragging a half-conscious guard behind him, her expression finally softened. "Maybe you're not just talk after all," she muttered. Shrek smirked. "Glad you noticed, princess." Back at the Resistance hideout, Shrek finally told them everything about how this wasn't the real timeline, how Rumple had rewritten history, how they needed to break into the Burning Mountain and destroy the Scroll of Fate to fix everything. Fiona listened in silence. Finally, she sighed. "If what you're saying is true," she said, crossing her arms, "then we don't just need to stop Rumple, we need to end him." Shrek nodded. "Then let's do it," he said. Deep inside his fortress of shattered fate, Rumpelstiltskin watched from his throne. He saw the rebellion gathering. He saw Shrek leading them, and for the first time, he felt afraid. "So the ogre actually made it this far," he muttered. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, a hulking armored warrior with glowing red eyes. It was a resurrected Tai Lung. Rumpelstiltskin grinned. Time for a rematch. The Resistance camp was no longer a place of hiding. It was a place of preparation. Weapons were sharpened, armor was reforged, and the warriors of far, far away, ogres, fairy tale creatures, exiled knights, and kung fu masters, stood ready. Shrek, standing in the heart of the camp, watched as the rebellion finally prepared to fight back. For years they had lived in fear. For years they had accepted Rumpelstiltskin's rule. But now they were taking their home back. As Shrek sat by the campfire, Fiona approached, arms crossed. She was still skeptical, still unsure if she could trust him. But there was something about him. Something familiar. "All right, Ogre," she muttered. "Tell me again, how exactly do you know me?" Shrek exhaled, setting down his food. "Because in the real world," he said, "we were married. We had a home together. We even had a couple of kids." Fiona's brows furrowed. "That's impossible." Shrek gave her a sad smile. "Yeah," he muttered. "I used to think that too." For a long moment, Fiona just stared at him. Something deep inside her ached, like a memory just out of reach. Finally, she shook her head. "We'll see if you're telling the truth when this is over," she muttered, before walking away. Shrek watched her go. A part of her was remembering. But would it be enough? The next morning, the army of the rebellion stood at the foot of the burning mountain. The volcano loomed over them, smoke pouring into the sky, rivers of molten lava flowing through the cracks of the earth. At the top, past fortress walls, deadly guards, and enchanted traps, was the Scroll of Fate. Shrek clenched his fists. "All right, folks," he called out. "This is it. We fight, we win, and we take back what's ours." The warriors roared in agreement. Then, with weapons drawn, they charged. The Battle of the Burning Mountain had begun. As the battle raged, Shrek and the Furious Five cut through enemy after enemy. Tigress took down entire squads on her own. Monkey swung between burning rooftops, knocking out archers. Mantis, Crane, and Viper worked together, tearing through defenses. But then, the ground trembled, the air grew heavy, and from the shadows of the fortress, a massive, armored figure stepped forward. Tai Lung. But this wasn't just Tai Lung. His fur was darkened with shadow. His eyes glowed red. His body radiated unnatural energy, infused with Rumple's dark magic. Shrek stared in disbelief. "You gotta be kidding me." Tai Lung smirked, rolling his shoulders. "Miss me, Ogre." Then, without warning, he attacked. Tai Lung moved like a hurricane, his fists blurring through the air. Shrek barely dodged the first few strikes, stumbling backward as Tai Lung advanced. Tai Lung struck with deadly precision. Shrek countered with brute strength. Tai Lung leapt off walls. Flipping midair, Shrek grabbed a boulder and threw it at him. Tai Lung tried his nerve strike. Shrek just grinned. "Still ain't working, pal." But this Tai Lung was stronger than before. Every attack landed with the force of a cannon blast. Shrek was starting to lose ground. Then Tai Lung grabbed Shrek by the throat and slammed him into the ground. The impact shook the battlefield. Shrek gasped for air. "Face it," Tai Lung sneered. "You're not a warrior. You're just a joke with a title." Shrek coughed, laughing weakly. "Yeah, well, I got something for you." Tai Lung raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what's that?" Shrek grinned. Then he headbutted Tai Lung hard. Tai Lung staggered back, stunned. Shrek pushed himself up, rolling his shoulders. "Pain," he muttered. While Shrek fought Tai Lung, Fiona and the Furious Five stormed the fortress. Inside, at the heart of the mountain, stood Rumpelstiltskin. He sat on his throne of golden contracts, smirking as they entered. "Ah, the mighty resistance," he drawled. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Fiona stepped forward, sword drawn. "Your reign ends today, Rumple." Rumpelstiltskin laughed. "You think you can stop me? I control time itself." With a snap of his fingers, the scroll of fate floated into his hands. With a single stroke, he whispered, "I could erase all of you." Fiona tightened her grip on her sword. Not this time. She lunged. As Shrek and Tai Lung's battle tore through the fortress, Fiona and the Furious Five fought desperately to reach the scroll of fate. Rumpelstiltskin, now panicking, fired wave after wave of magic blasts. But Fiona dodged, weaving through the attacks. Finally, she grabbed the scroll. Then everything froze. Rumpelstiltskin's eyes widened in horror. "No." Fiona threw the scroll to Shrek. Shrek caught it midair. Tai Lung, dazed and barely standing, saw what was happening. With a final, desperate move, he lunged at Shrek. But it was too late. Shrek ripped the scroll in half. Reality shattered. Light engulfed everything. The wasteland vanished. The war disappeared. And when Shrek opened his eyes and he was back in far, far away, everything was as it should be. Fiona stood before him, this time her eyes filled with love and recognition. Shrek exhaled, his heart finally at peace. "Hey lass," he said softly. Fiona smiled. "Welcome home." Deep within the spirit realm, a shadowed figure watched the restored world. It was Po. But his eyes were filled with fear. Behind him, Master Oogway appeared. "It has begun," Oogway said softly. Po turned to him, fists clenched. "Then we have to stop it." Far, far away had never looked so beautiful. After the war, after the chaos, after the nightmare of a world without him, Shrek finally had his life back. The streets were bustling again, music filled the air, and the castle stood tall and proud, no longer under Rumpelstiltskin's twisted rule. And most importantly, Fiona was here, not as a warrior hardened by years of struggle, but as his wife, the woman he fell in love with. Shrek stood on the castle balcony, watching the world below, taking in the peace he had fought so hard for. "You look deep in thought," Fiona said, stepping beside him. Shrek smirked. "Yeah, well, still getting used to things being normal again." Fiona leaned on the railing, gazing at the kingdom. "We finally get to live the life we always wanted." Shrek smiled. For once in his life, he actually believed it. Meanwhile, far across the world, deep within the Jade Palace, Po, the dragon warrior of China, stood at the top of the mountain, staring at the sky. Master Shifu, standing beside him, watched in silence. "You feel it too, don't you?" Shifu said quietly. Po nodded. The air was wrong. The sky rippled like cracks forming in glass. Ever since Shrek had restored time, something had been off. The universe was breaking. Master Oogway's spirit appeared, his voice calm but serious. The balance of fate has shifted, Oogway said. Reality was never meant to be rewritten. Now it is beginning to unravel. Poe's stomach twisted. So, what do we do? Oogway turned, his expression unreadable. We seek the one who changed fate itself. Shifu frowned. You mean... Oogway nodded. We must find Shrek. Back and far, far away, Shrek had just settled in for a long nap when a sudden bright flash erupted outside the castle. The air shimmered, twisting unnaturally. And from the light, tigress, monkey, crane, viper, and mantis emerged. The Furious Five had arrived. Shrek, blinking in confusion, scratched his head. Okay. Either I'm dreaming or I ate something weird for lunch. Tigress marched up to him, her eyes deadly serious. Shrek, she said, you need to come with us. Shrek raised an eyebrow. Yeah, and why would I do that? Tigress clenched her fists. Because the universe is falling apart. Shrek froze. Monkey stepped forward, arms crossed. And guess what, big guy? It's kinda your fault. Shrek sighed, rubbing his temples. Great. Just once I'd like to save the day without breaking something. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over, and so for one last time, Shrek prepared for battle. Following the Furious Five, Shrek was taken to the Jade Palace, a place he had once called home. There, waiting for him, was Poe and Master Oogway. The moment Shrek stepped into the temple, Poe gave him a huge grin. Dude, Poe beamed. The Dragon Warrior returns. Shrek smirked. Course I do. Can't get rid of me that easy. Oogway, standing before them, raised his staff. Shrek, your actions have altered fate. By undoing what was meant to be, you have created a paradox. Shrek crossed his arms. So what? I saved my home. Ain't that what matters? Oogway nodded. Yes. But now, something is coming. Shrek's stomach dropped. What? Kind of something? Oogway's expression darkened. A force unlike any other. A being who watches over fate itself. And now, it is coming. For you. The room fell silent. Then, Poe, blinking, leaned toward Shrek. Yeah, so... This is bad. Like end of everything bad. Shrek sighed heavily. Perfect. Just what I needed. The sky ripped open. From the fractured sky, a massive, godlike being emerged. It was colossal, towering over mountains, its golden armor shimmering like the sun. Its face was unreadable, but its eyes burned with cosmic power. Oogway's voice was quiet, but filled with warning. The Titan of Fate has arrived. The being spoke, its voice shaking the heavens. You have altered destiny. You have unbalanced the scales of time. Now you must face judgment. Shrek cracked his knuckles. Yeah, well, here's the thing, mate. He stepped forward, standing against the god of fate itself. I ain't big on following rules. The heavens cracked like glass. The Titan of Fate descended, its enormous form casting a shadow over the entire Jade Palace. Gold and blue energy pulsed through its body, its mere presence bending reality around it. Poe, standing beside Shrek, gulped loudly. Okay, so, that's a big guy. Shrek rolled his shoulders, staring up. Aye, looks like a real pain in the, Before he could finish, the Titan moved. A colossal hand swung down, tearing through the air like a tidal wave of power. Shrek and Poe barely dodged, rolling out of the way as the impact shattered the courtyard beneath them. Tigress and the Furious Five sprang into action. Tigress leapt from rooftop to rooftop, launching powerful strikes at the Titan's joints. Monkey swung from its arm, trying to distract it. Crane, Mantis, and Viper focused on hitting weak spots in its massive frame. But the Titan? It didn't even flinch. It raised one hand and with a simple motion, time slowed. Everything froze mid-air. The Furious Five were suspended, their attacks halted mid-motion. Shrek, however, he could still move. The Titan of Fate tilted its head. Interesting. You, the one who defied time, are unaffected. Shrek, panting, gritted his teeth. Yeah? Well, ain't the first time I broke something important. The Titan's eyes glowed. Your existence is a contradiction. By altering the past, you have created a paradox that cannot be contained. Shrek narrowed his eyes. Yeah, and what's that mean for me? The Titan raised a colossal hand. It means you must be erased. The sky darkened, the air shook, and the Titan unleashed its power. Shrek braced himself as the Titan fired a golden beam of cosmic energy. At the last second, he rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding total annihilation. Po broke free of the time lock, jumping in beside Shrek. Okay, new plan, Po panted. We don't die. Shrek smirked. Good plan. Then they charged. The fight was unlike anything Shrek had ever faced. Every punch from the Titan shattered the land itself. Shrek fought with pure brute strength, grabbing the Titan's fingers and flipping it over. Po unleashed his chi, sending shockwaves of energy against the godlike being. The Furious Five broke free and attacked with everything they had. But the Titan was unstoppable. With one motion, it lifted Shrek into the air and slammed him through the mountain. Shrek groaned, pushing himself up. All right, he muttered. That one hurt. Po landed beside him, breathing heavily. Dude, we are so outmatched. Shrek wiped the blood from his lip. Then we gotta get smart. Far, far away was in chaos. The Titan's battle against Shrek had ripped through the balance of reality itself. Portals opened across the sky, showing alternate timelines and fractured versions of history. Inside the castle, Fiona, Puss in Boots, and Donkey fought off creatures spilling through the portals. As Fiona cut down another enemy, she suddenly felt something deep inside her. A memory. A memory that shouldn't exist. She saw her past, her real past. The days with Shrek, their love, their life, their children. It all came flooding back. Tears filled her eyes as she gasped, realizing the truth. Shrek. She knew what she had to do. She turned to Puss and Donkey. Get everyone to safety. I have to end this. Back at the battlefield, Shrek was barely standing. The Titan loomed over him, preparing to erase him from existence. But before it could strike, Fiona arrived, and she held something glowing in her hands. Shrek stared. Fiona? Fiona's eyes blazed with power. I remember everything. She held out her hands, and a brilliant golden energy flowed into Shrek. The power of their love. The power of their true history. Shrek felt it ignite inside him. For the first time, he was more than just an ogre. He was a legend. With a mighty roar, Shrek charged at the Titan one last time. Shrek slammed his fist into the Titan's core. A shockwave erupted, spreading across the sky. The Titan let out a deafening cry as its body cracked. Then, in a burst of light, it was gone. The universe was safe. The paradox was undone. And as the sky cleared, Shrek turned to Fiona. She smiled, tears in her eyes. You did it, she whispered. Shrek pulled her into a hug. Nah, he muttered. We did it. In the spirit realm, Oogway sat in deep thought. Po approached, confused. So everything's fixed, right? Oogway nodded. Yes, but balance must be maintained. Oogway turned to the sky, where a new figure emerged, a panda. A warrior who was always meant to be the dragon warrior. The true dragon warrior. And with a final bow, Oogway whispered, Welcome home, Po. The Titan of Fate was gone. The universe had healed. And for the first time in what felt like forever, peace had returned. Shrek stood in the middle of the battlefield panting. The sky above was no longer fractured. The earth beneath him was stable again. Far, far away was whole. And as Fiona ran toward him, tears in her eyes, he knew. They had won. She crashed into him, wrapping her arms around him tightly. "You did it," she whispered. Shrek exhaled, holding her close. "I guess I did." Po, standing beside the Furious Five, grinned. "Okay, wow. That was insane. I mean, I fought some crazy stuff, but you just punched a cosmic god into oblivion." Monkey whistled. "Gotta admit, big guy, you're pretty legendary." Shrek chuckled. "Yeah, well, what else is new?" But then, something changed. As Shrek stood there, surrounded by his friends, something felt wrong. His hands started to tingle. His body felt lighter. And then, he noticed it. Pieces of himself were fading, like dust being carried away by the wind. Shrek's stomach dropped. Fiona, seeing it too, stepped back in horror. "Shrek?" Her voice cracked. "What's happening?" Po's grin vanished. Oogway? A little explanation here. Master Oogway, who had watched silently from the mountaintop, closed his eyes. "The balance has been restored," he said softly. "Time has corrected itself." And so, he looked at Shrek, sadness in his wise old eyes. "You were never meant to be here." A heavy silence fell over them. Fiona's hands trembled. No, that's not fair. He saved everything." Shrek looked at his hands, watching as more of him faded. His chest tightened. He had known something felt off, but he hadn't wanted to believe it. Now, there was no denying it. This was his end. Fiona shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "There has to be a way. There has to be something we can do." Shrek forced a smile, reaching up to wipe a tear from her cheek. "Hey, it's all right, lass," he murmured. Fiona sobbed. "No, it's not." Shrek chuckled weakly. "Come on, don't go making a scene. I'll start crying too." Donkey, who had been silent this whole time, suddenly burst forward. No, this ain't happening." Donkey's voice cracked as he grabbed Shrek's arm. "We just got everything back. You just got your life back." Shrek smiled sadly. "Yeah, well, not everything lasts forever." Puss in Boots lowered his head, gripping the hilt of his sword. "You deserve better than this, amigo." Shrek smirked. I had a good run." Then he turned to Po. "Guess it's all on you now, huh?" Po, for once, was speechless. His ears flattened, his fists clenched. "I don't want to take your place," he admitted. Shrek placed a hand on Po's shoulder. "Too bad, big guy," he said softly. "Because you were always meant to." Po's eyes watered. "I'll make you proud," he whispered. Shrek grinned. "I know you will." Finally, he turned back to Fiona. She was holding back sobs, gripping his hand as tightly as she could. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't go." Shrek leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. "I'll always love you," he murmured. Fiona let out a shaky breath. "I love you too." And then, Shrek let go. A soft wind blew through the valley, and just like that, Shrek was gone. Fiona fell to her knees, covering her mouth as silent tears fell. Donkey turned away, unable to watch. Puss in Boots removed his hat, lowering his head. Po clenched his fists, taking in one final deep breath. Then Master Oogway stepped forward. "He may be gone," Oogway said gently, "but his legend will live forever." Po, wiping his eyes, stepped forward. He turned to the Furious Five. "All right," he murmured. "We've got a lot of work to do. Tigress nodded. Then let's get started. Po turned to Fiona, who was still grieving. I'll make sure his name is never forgotten, Po promised. Fiona, still heartbroken, gave him a small nod. Thank you. As the sun rose over the valley, the world moved forward, but it would never forget the one who had saved it. The dragon warrior who was never meant to be. The ogre who became a legend. The greatest hero far, far away had ever known. Shrek. In a distant realm, beyond time itself, a mysterious figure watched. He had seen it all. He had witnessed Shrek's rise and his fall. With a heavy sigh, the figure turned away from the portal. Then, in a deep, powerful voice, he whispered, "Rest well, Ogre. Your story is far from over." And that is going to be it for What If Shrek Became the Dragon Warrior. Now, what did you think of this What If crossover between Shrek and Kung Fu Panda? What did you think of Po returning as the Dragon Warrior? Did you guys like how I wrote that little twist within the storyline? And if you did, drop a comment down below. What do you think could have been done differently in the story? And again, if you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. But that being said, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I want to give a massive shout out to our Patreon supporters, as well as the YouTube community members. It really goes a long way, and we have brand new tiers on the channel. So if you guys want to work with us, we have all these different options available. Because I know that even in some of the live streams that we're doing here, we can't get to every idea, and there's so many good ideas, but it's just not possible. So we did make it possible for you. If you really have a great idea that you would like to work with me on the channel, I would love to get into a call and discuss it. So that is an option that we have. That's something brand new on the channel, and it really just supports the channel growing even more, and it helps make a lot more of these videos possible, especially these full movie type videos. So again, thank you guys so very much, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a wonderful day. Peace out.